It's been a while since I gave you a new writing update, and since the last time we talked, I wrote 2 new books, and I'm currently writing a 3rd one. In case you're new, hi, I'm Father Roderick. I'm a priest, and I write fantasy. And just to bring you up to speed with what happened over the past couple of weeks, if not months, in October, I took part in the Inktober challenge, which connected me with something that I used to love as a child and as a teenager, which was to draw. I drew a lot of comics. Inktober is a challenge that challenges you. What else does a challenge do? To create an ink drawing, very simple, black and white, every single day, and gives you a trigger word. Now, I haven't touched a pen in since I was a teenager. When I entered seminary, I never drew anything anymore. And this brought me back, and I love it so much. And what was even more, incentivizing was that there was a new word every day that not only inspired drawings, but also immediately, I'm a storyteller, inspired stories. And so I wrote a short story every single day and made the illustration on my iPad. They're all ready to read if you want to check them out on my Substack, fatherroderick.substack.com. And what I loved about it was that it really helped me to reinforce this daily writing routine. In total, I think I wrote more than 60,000 words. So that is actually a book. So it's one of the things that I would like to publish in the upcoming year as an anthology. The second project was even more exciting, and that was the month of November. Now, you may remember NaNoWriMo, the National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo. This was a challenge that incentivized people to write an entire novel in just 30 days, which I think, depending on how long the novel would be, would require you to write about 2,000 words every day. I was like, okay, I've done this in the past. I tried this in the past and failed because I didn't know what I was doing. I had never written a book before. So usually I gave up after a couple of days. Not this year. Now I was like, okay, here's the challenge. I'm not only going to write a novella, I'm going to write an entire novel in just 30 days. I have no time to plot. I didn't have time to prepare because, as I mentioned, I just came out of Inktober, the Inktober challenge. And so I decided to do something new and terrifying. And that was to write into the dark. So to just figure it out as I go. Initially, my ambition was to write something relatively simple. It would be a prequel to my series about the story mages of Ireland. And in this prequel, I would tell the story of the father of Ty. Ty is the protagonist of my first book that I wrote earlier this year. And his father, he doesn't know much about his father because, circumstances, I can't spoil it. But Ty does have his father's diary. Now, for this book, I figured, what if I just write this diary? And it will allow me to kind of do a bit of world building, figure out also the magic system, and we'll just follow this guy through the diary, which will make the book that I've already written even more compelling because you have a little bit more of backstory. It's like what the prequels did to the original trilogy of Star Wars. It just gave the story so much more depth. And so I started writing, and I was on fire. I wrote like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words a day, sometimes even more. And I ended up, at the end of the month, having written a novel of, and I still can't believe that this happened, of more than 100,000 words. But not only did I surprise myself in terms of the quantity of words that I wrote, but also the quality of the story. It is such a riveting story. And now I'm wondering, maybe this just should be part of the entire series and not just a standalone little something. No, this merits to be part of the saga. And it also is a testament as to how much you can learn in just 1 year about storytelling, because the way I developed the story, even though I was doing it on the fly, I could apply a lot of the lessons learned about character development, about what makes for a riveting story. And the most challenging part of it was to bring it all together at the end, because when I was about, approaching the end of Act 2, then I really needed to do some serious planning on how is this going to get together, and also kind of set up the next book. That was quite the challenge, quite a puzzle, but I managed to figure it out and wrote like a madman in the last 2 days, and I finished it. And I am so incredibly excited that it worked. And so it's now on the shelf, because this month is, I challenged myself again. It's the third challenge this year. And this time it's an Advent project. For the 25 days of Advent and the first day of Christmas, I am writing a cozy fantasy novel. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, because I just couldn't find a good reason to do it. Normally around this time in December, it would be the time to tone down, to not do too much. Also because, well, in a minute I'll tell you about a big project that I'm also currently engaged in. And so, I don't know, I didn't see myself writing yet another novel. But then again, this is the season for cozy fantasy, right? This is the season to snuggle up on the couch with a blanket and hot chocolate and a good book. So I finally figured out why I wanted to write it. And that was because I wanted to support a fellow author, Cato Frederiks. I think I've already talked about her in the past. I interviewed her this past year. She has a chronic illness and she needs neck surgery, which is massively going to improve her quality of life. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive type of surgery that is not reimbursed by her insurance. And so she's raising money. And I figured, well, maybe if I write a new chapter every day and I offer people to adopt one of those chapters by donating to her cause, then I can help a little bit, spread a little bit of light in this dark month of December. So that was the final thing that pushed me over the edge, and I decided to start writing. Again, I'm writing into the dark. I didn't plan anything. The only idea that I had was I wanted to be in a small village. It needs to happen in the world of my other novels. And so this is taking place in the world of Dragon Patrol, which is another book that I wrote this past year. Even though that book is not published yet, I know what that world looks like. And I imagined the story about someone who has been a dragon rider, but is afflicted by a chronic disease. And because of that, she's demoted. She ends up in pest patrol in the city. And then even for that, she's just too ill. And for the Advent season, she returns to her hometown, stays with her grandmother, and has to rebuild her life. And that's where the whole story starts. I've been writing a new chapter every day. This is much harder than I thought, because this is a new genre. I've never written a cozy fantasy story, so I had to do quite a bit of research on, what makes for a good cozy fantasy story. Low stakes, lots of sensory details, lots of eating, lots of hot chocolate, cinnamon, all the stuff. But at the same time, it's such a joy to write. What I love about cozy fantasy is that it gives us literally a bit of a refuge in this crazy world where everything seems so dark and so violent, and we often feel so powerless. And by telling a small story about found family, about charity and care and harmony, there are, of course, going to be stakes. There is an antagonist and everything, but all in all, it's a story that makes you feel good and restores your faith in humanity. At least that's the plan. So I'm publishing a new chapter every day. I invite people to adopt one of those chapters, just as my protagonist is adopting these fantastical creatures like little dragons and rock monsters. You can adopt one of those chapters by donating to Cato's cause. She has a GoFundMe, and then just send me a note and I will dedicate one of these chapters to you. Hope that some of you are able to do that. It definitely it's a huge sign of support for Cato, because being chronically ill, being bedridden for most of the day, it makes your world feel extremely small. This is an initiative that can help kind of break that solitude and show people like Cato that they're not alone, that we all are in one way or another trying to bring some light in this world, and in this case to help her a little bit on this very difficult journey towards hopefully successful operation, successful surgery, and some relief. So that's what I wanted to share with you. All the chapters are available on my Substack. They appear every single day. You can also subscribe to my newsletter, and then you'll get an email with the story. So go take a look, fatherroderick.substack.com. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this update. Any comment, just a thumbs up is great as well. It just helps the algorithm. And if you happen to know people that love cozy fantasy and might be in for a story like this, pass it on. Please let other people know about this initiative, not just because I like my stories to be read, but this is a story for, I think, a very good cause. You can really help Cato and the people around her. So thanks again. Happy Advent. I'll check in a little bit more regularly in the upcoming weeks. Talk to you soon. God bless.